guys, Wendell Sailor here for PNGBet. Welcome to the 2021 NRL season, and more importantly, Big Dell's tips. Hey, are we going to win some money or what? And I've got to tell you, what a great game to start with. The Melbourne Storm, the premiers, versus the Bunnies. And the Bunnies are the favourites this year. A lot of people have got them there because of the recruiting they've had this year with Jai Arrow, Benji Marshall, obviously Wayne Bennett at the helm. But this is a tough one for the punters. But I can't go against Melbourne. Melbourne have never lost an NRL match in round one. That's an unbelievable record. Have a look at the players on show. Latrell Mitchell versus Pappenhausen, two quality fullbacks. Look at the halves. Cody Walker, Cameron Munster. This is exciting. Adam Reynolds, Jerome Hughes. How can you not love rugby league? And then you go to the big boys in the forwards. Big Nelson and Sofa Solomona against someone like Cameron Murray. It's going to be some sort of a game down there in Amy Park. And I've got to say, I'm surprised at this, but South Sydney are $1.83. Melbourne Storm, the premiers, unbelievable effort last year. They're $1.87. But I tell you what, I can't go past the Melbourne Storm at home. I know that there's no Cameron Smith this year. We know that Brandon Smith will take the hooking role. But if you're not going to take Melbourne Storm straight off the bat, you've got to take Melbourne Storm with a -3.5 start. At home, they very rarely lose at Amy Park. And I think the pressure's on South because everyone's tipped them as the premiers this year. So with that comes a lot of pressure. But this is going to be some sort of a game. The rules are going to make the game quicker. I think it'll suit South Sydney, but I still couldn't go past the Melbourne Storm for this one. I'm excited. Just because it's the unknown in the first round. And we all love those sort of games where you're just excited. And I've got to say, one of my favourite players to watch, the number 4 from Melbourne Storm, Justin Olam. I thought he was one of the best centres in the game last year. Everything he did was quality. His aggression through the middle, the way he scored tries, the passion that he played with. And I've been to Papua New Guinea a few times, so I know where that passion comes from. So I know everyone up there is very proud of the way he's playing. And then you go to the wing and you watch a guy like Josh Adokar. You know, he's quick. Him up against someone like Alex Johnston. So there's plenty of things here that I see that's going to entice me to think, you know, I've got to go with the Melbourne Storm, but it's a very exciting football team, both these teams. So I say bring on the 2021 NRL Premiership. Well, this game here is very close to my heart. Wendell Sailor here from PNGBet.com. And you know what I love? I love nothing more than watching my old team run around. The Brisbane Broncos, the mighty Broncos. They weren't so mighty last year. Obviously, the wooden spoon does not sit well with me with all those premierships when you walk into the Brisbane Broncos club. But the Parramatta Eels, they haven't done a great deal since the 80s. I think they won 4 or 5 premierships back there. They're struggling a little bit at the moment. Just, you know what? They're not struggling as a club because they've been in the top 4 the last few years, but they're struggling to make that grand final. But this year they've recruited a few blokes, they've lost a few blokes also. So for me, it's going to start at the back there. Clint Gutherson, he's their fierce leader, so he'll set the standard. But I think it's more important for the Broncos here. The Broncos got Kevin Walters, one of the greats, one of the great Broncos, but he hasn't really coached rugby league before. So it's going to see how he's going to translate into his coaching. He's got a lot of the old boys behind him. He's called me a few times. I don't know if I can help him coach, but I'm very passionate about getting the Broncos back on track. And this is a good one for the Bronco forwards because last year, no one rated the Bronco forwards. They just thought they were soft. They thought they were, they were overpaid and underworked. And a lot of the Broncos ex-players, but even I think some of the players in the game just couldn't believe how this great Broncos team could be so soft through the middle and all the edges. But look, Alex Glenn's the man to lead them back to into the finals. But I think it also starts with their front rowers, Tavita Pengai Jr. and Matt Lodge. You set the standard there because you're going to have to. Because you're going up against guys like Regan Campbell-Gillard, Ryan Madison, Nathan Brown. These guys, mate, they just know one way. And playing at Suncorp Stadium, you might have the crowd behind you for the Brisbane Broncos. But when you're an away team, you love nothing more than travelling there and taking the points away from the Broncos. So for me, I think it's fair enough. The Parramatta Eels are $1.36. Brisbane Broncos, $3.25. That's a big price. But for me, I think taking the Broncos with a 7.5 start for $2. That is mouth-watering for me. I would take that every day of the week. So for me, take the Broncos at the line, and I think this year we'll see the Broncos get back to, I'm not saying their best, but back to the Broncos culture that we're used to seeing because Kevin Walters will get them back there. Go the Bronx. Hey guys, Wendell Sailor here from PNGBet.com. Oh, and this is a cracking game Saturday. The SCG, the Roosters versus Seagulls. Well, we know at number one, there's going to be no Tommy Turbo. Sometimes you can't have those late night sprints, and sometimes you've got to be careful in the shower. We all know that. Dylan Walker goes back to number one. He'll be able to handle that role quite well. But the big surprise for me is, it's not that much of a big surprise, is the prodigal son is back home. That man, Kieran Foran. He comes back at number 6 to partner DCE. So that will give them some stability through that spine, and I reckon they'll do a good job. Young Jason Saab from the Dragons onto the wing. A very good player, but then I have a look at this Rooster side. This is an all-star team. Tedesco, Morris, Manu, Brett Morris. But the one for me that's close to home is a young kid that I was lucky enough to coach back when my young bloke came through. He's a young PNG lad. I think he's played 3 or 4 games for Papua New Guinea. Young Lachlan Lamb. I've got to play a lot of football with and against his dad, Adrian Lamb, for Queensland. And obviously, in the grand final 2000. Sorry about that, Adrian. We beat you there in the 2000 grand final. But Lachlan Lamb, very skillful, very strong through the hips. I think he'll partner quite well with Luke Keary. If you look at that forward pack, they've got a very skillful forward pack once again. Takiaho, Tupanua and those guys. And I just don't know whether the forwards from Manly can go with them. So Big Martin Tapau, he'll lead from the front there. Big Jakey Trbojevic is there, Curtis Sirenen. But for me, mate, I look at Manly Seagulls there, $3.70. That's a big price, and that should be at a big price because this Roosters team looks too good. The Roosters are $1.30. I'm taking the Roosters minus the 9.5 start. That's $1.85. If I'm you, I'm getting on the Roosters at the line. There's plenty of money to win there. Hi guys, Wendell Sailor here from PNGBet.com. What a cracking game we have for you down the nation's capital. The Canberra Raiders versus the West Tigers. Well, the West Tigers have recruited quite well. They've recruited that big man, James Tamau, to help get their troops back in the 8. They haven't been there for a few years now. Obviously lost the great Benji Marshall. This is a really good test for them. On the road, they talked about coming together as a team and being mentally tougher. I saw a couple of interviews through the week. No good just talking about it. You've got to get down there and execute it, especially against a team like the Raiders, because if you don't, they'll put plenty of points on you. I'm quite surprised here, but they've gone with a young bloke at the back. I know he's a talented young kid. He came from Penrith, young Dane Laurie. He's some sort of player, Dane Laurie, but just a lot of pressure in that first game. But look at their recruits, James Roberts. He gives them speed there. So it's up to Luke Brooks here to get them around. But in the forwards, Joe Offengowie from the Broncos. Young Jacob Little is back. So that's a number 9. He's a very talented young bloke. He's had a few injuries. So I'm looking forward to seeing how he goes. And that bench looks really good from the West Tigers. But the Green Machine. And the Green Machine, for me, I've picked them as, I reckon they're going to be in the grand final. I've picked South and Raiders as my grand finalists. But if I have a look at their side, there's no Jared Croker. He's not playing this week. But, mate, what a good back line. Charms, Nickel Clockstad there. You got Rapana. You got Jack White in there and Georgie Williams. So you got that flavour. But what I do like, look at the big men here. Josh Papali, guys like Elliot Whitehead and Joseph Tarpanay. Those guys going up against Offengowie and that Alex Twal, that's going to be really aggressive through that middle. And that's where the Raiders have set the standard for a long time. So it's up to the Tigers to match that power. If they don't match that power, they're going to get blown out of the water. So, as you'd expect, at home, the Raiders are $1.30, West Tigers $3.20. I think the West Tigers, if you're going to back the West Tigers, you need every bit of that $3.20, because I'm taking the Raiders at minus 8.5. I know they score a lot of points at home, but defensively they're very good as well. So get me on the Raiders. It's the Green Machine for me. Go the Canberra Milk.